A lot of people who join us feel a higher calling to give back, and they want to take part in something bigger than themselves, and they want to give back for that reason. And I think that a lot of our volunteers bring their friends once they get started because it feels so good to be doing good. And it's contagious. You know, once you get started, you kind of tell everybody about it and more people want to join in.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Goodness Game podcast. I'm here with Rachel from SHIM. What's going on, Rachel?
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good.
All right. So, Rachel, I've known you for a little while. Why don't you give everybody a little background on you and then what's SHIM?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the Development and Communications Manager at SHIM, South Hills Interfaith Movement. We're a human services agency here in the South Hills suburbs of Pittsburgh, really meeting a lot of needs, basic needs, such as food, clothing, utility assistance, financial programs. But then we also serve a really big refugee and immigrant population. So we have a family center with parenting classes and youth programs and family support and support groups. So overall, just helping a lot of people here in the South Hills with wraparound programs so that we find holistic help so people can really kind of lift themselves up and not need us anymore.
Nice. So first, I remember you told me before, how did SHIM start? It's kind of like, sounds like a joke would start, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a priest, a rabbi, and a minister, they got together. They didn't walk into a bar, but they got together to meet the needs here in the South Hills. They saw that the South Hills Village Mall was coming in, and they thought, where there's a mall, kids are going to gather. We should be there to support them. So it started as sort of a youth space and an information referral service, and then it just has really changed over time to adapt to the needs. So when there was a lot of homelessness, SHIM kind of helped with that. With unemployment, SHIM helped with that. Those were the 80s and 90s. And then in the early 2000s, with the Bosnian refugee crisis, SHIM is a partner with Allegheny County Department of Human Services. And so they approached SHIM to start a family center. And that's when our work in the refugee and immigrant community really got started. Since 1968, we've been here adapting to the needs and serving the community in the South Hills.
Nice. So they started in the Village Mall, huh? South Hills Village.
Yeah. It was called Ministries in the Mall.
Really? Do you know where it was in the mall?
I don't know where it was in the mall. I have no idea which location. I know that they had a room, and at some point the mall said, well, this isn't, this is not a store, and they got kicked out. But
yeah.
They were there.
Is that when you guys moved to like your current location?
No. So I am unclear on the trajectory, but there have been a few different locations before we landed at the current one. I think in 2008, we got this Bethel Park location and now recently renovated. So we own this building and we're invested in this space, and it's great to have it recently renovated.
I saw it. You used to be a professional violinist?
Yeah. So my journey to SHIM is kind of a strange, unexpected one. I was professional violinist for most of my life. I mean, I was committed early on and went to school for it. And when my kids were younger, I started to consider, would I want to keep doing this? I was a freelancer. It was, hard with the childcare, and I worked a lot of nights and weekends. And so I thought, if I were to do something else, what would I do? What would I want to get into? And so I did a little volunteering in some other agencies. I volunteered at Hello Neighbor. My family did the mentorship program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but we mentored a family from Nepal, and that was really a great experience. And then I found out about SHIM, and I interned here just to learn more about nonprofit work and what human services agencies do in the community. And I just completely fell in love with SHIM. And so when the job opened up for my current position, I jumped at it, and I feel very lucky to be here now 4 years.
That's cool. So like professional, were you playing in the symphony or something, or?
So I used to sub with the symphony. I had a contract with the opera. The opera is my favorite. So I used to play with the Pittsburgh Opera. I actually had a job in the Florida Orchestra in Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. It's where I met my husband. And then he got a job in the Pittsburgh Symphony. And I subbed it with the Pittsburgh Symphony off and on, kind of depending on how many illnesses or pregnancy, maternity leaves there were, how many people were out. So I did freelance for, I want to say 9 years. In Pittsburgh before deciding that I was ready to do something else.
That's crazy. Where'd you go to school for music?
Cleveland Institute of Music.
Nice. Oh, yeah, I was curious. I used to play trumpet a lot. I used to play with like Junior River City Brass. I studied down like Carnegie Mellon there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I loved being in youth orchestra and all of that. And yeah, it was a great life for being a mom at the beginning too, because I spent a lot of time with my kids when they were babies. And then I would go off and work from like 3 to 6 or 7 to 10 or whatever it was. So I got a lot of time at home with my kids while I was working. But once they hit elementary school age, I thought I'm going to miss too much. I'm going to miss everything. So
yeah, I guess, yeah, you got to make those decisions, you know?
yeah.
Does your husband
I feel
play,
lucky
you
and
said?
have the space too. Hmm?
You said your husband plays also?
Yeah, he plays in the symphony.
Does he still do it?
Yep. Yeah, he plays bass.
Oh, that's cool.
He's the opposite of me, though. He's very quiet. He would never be on a podcast.
Really? Okay. Yeah, nice.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's interesting too, how you got into like doing what you did, because it's not like you went out and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get involved with nonprofits and that's going to be my career. You just did it as an internship and found you liked it.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is I really loved volunteering. I've always loved volunteering. And SHIM is such a welcoming place for volunteers of every different, ability. I mean, we met because you wanted to offer some volunteer services and it wasn't something that we had listed on the website. You just were compelled to do that. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. I was compelled to help. And I thought, what kind of job could I have where it feels like I'm volunteering all the time?
That's cool. All right, so what's your helping style? You read the book. What's your thing that you like doing? Is it like volunteering or spending time or what?
Yeah. The organizing part, the managing a task, like the project management part of it. I really love that kind of thing, like thinking through how can I help? What are the steps it's going to take? Definitely the volunteering, the actual getting in there and doing things, and rallying people, right? Like getting other people involved and sharing their cause. I feel like those are the strongest pulls for me.
That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting because like everyone's got their own thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's not really my thing, but it's your thing, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so SHIM, let's talk about SHIM for a minute. You guys do a bunch of different things. So I know you have the food pantry. What do you have? Like 3 or 4, I don't want to say sections, but like different departments or like different ways you help people? Like what are they?
Yeah, so we kind of think of things in different buckets. We have our basic needs bucket and our self-sufficiency, and then kind of our economic mobility. They all tie together because people access different programs. So 20% of our food pantry clients are accessing some other program at SHIM. We have a lot of kids in our youth programs. Their families are coming to the food pantries. We have a lot of kids that start in our preschool program and they go through after school and then all the way to youth mentoring. So in addressing basic needs, that's definitely the food pantry. So we have 3 food pantry locations. They each operate twice per month. They're on a schedule so people can come twice per month, kind of every other week to get what they need. It's really only 3 to 5 days worth of food. So a lot of people are kind of surprised to learn, the food pantry is tiding people over between paychecks or getting people through a rough patch. 85% of the people accessing our food pantries are either employed or on a fixed income. So I think a lot of people are surprised to know because they're not people sitting at home wasting time, not getting a job. These are hard-working families. They're trying to put enough food on the table. They're working really hard and they're still not making ends meet. So the food pantry is really a lifeline for a lot of families. But then utility assistance, we have a lot of high utility costs in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of the worst places to live for utility costs and home, like the age of the home. So we have a lot of homes that are not efficient. And so when the cost of energy goes up and the home is not efficient, that gap is really, really tough for people to manage. So we do a lot of utility assistance. And then our financial emergency grant program grew out of the pandemic. So SHIM had actually started to develop this program before the pandemic hit, knowing that people hit hard times. If your car breaks down and you can't get the repair, all of a sudden, then you can't get to work and you lose your job and it just becomes this spiral. So the emergency grant program is meant to just give people a one-time grant. This is not a, come back next month when you need more. This is a one-time, hey, you're moving because your rent got too high, you found a new place and you need the security deposit or, transportation hurdles. So that program, during the pandemic, we had a partnership with Allegheny County Department of Human Services in their rent release program, ERAP. But when all of the funding for that ended, SHIM realized that the need was still there. And so that's a program that we've really kind of invested in over the last few years to give people that lifeline to keep them from spiraling into poverty. But then with the immigrant and refugee population focus, so Pittsburgh has about 40% of the refugees and immigrants in this area. A lot of them are, or I think I might have said that wrong. The South Hills has about 40% of Pittsburgh's refugees and immigrants. So we have a huge diverse population here in the South Hills. And so our youth programs have been developed to help. So our early childhood program, our preschool program, is geared towards kids who don't speak English at home. And so not only are the teachers getting them ready for kindergarten by teaching them to wait in line and, colors, numbers, shapes, things like that, but they're also really trying to immerse them in English and help them speak English. So about 80% of those kids end up starting kindergarten without needing ESL, English as a second language, help, which is huge to give them that boost before they hit elementary school. And then 100% of them register for kindergarten on time. So a lot of these families, they can use a little extra help in even that process of registering kids for kindergarten. So we bring the school district representatives to our program and help everybody get set. Now we continue that care through the after-school program. So again, most of the kids we serve are coming from non-English speaking households. And so the parents really want to help the kids, but they don't necessarily have the tools to, say help with English homework or math homework. So our after-school program focuses heavily on academic enrichment and also creating a really safe, welcoming space for that cultural diversity. And then that continues even more in youth mentoring. So the cultural diversity piece is huge. The kids really feel safe and feel like they can celebrate their different cultural backgrounds. They have this thanks shimming each year, which is Thanksgiving, but it's like a potluck, and they all bring food from their different cultures, and the teens organize it themselves. And then we've really focused more and more on the helping the juniors and seniors get ready for college and whatever is happening after high school. And so we've always kind of had a focus on, if they want to apply for school, and each year they've gotten more and more ambitious. So the first year of the program, about half the kids went to CCAC and the other half just joined the workforce. And every year that has changed to have more kids go to college, and they get more and more ambitious. So last year's graduates, we have a pre-med student at Villanova. We have chemical engineer at Ohio University. The kids are just getting really, really ambitious. And so we're trying to support that because they're asking SHIM, hey, can I go visit the colleges that I want to check out this college here, or Penn State, or whatever it is. It's not even in Pittsburgh. And hey, can you help me with FAFSA? And so we've developed that program a lot to help those kids kind of see what's out there and have the support they need to apply to the schools they really want to.
That's pretty cool. How did you guys, so I get like the food bank and stuff makes sense. It's like, okay, people need food. That's a no-brainer. How did you guys get involved with the like immigrants and like helping the kids out so they don't have to do ESL? Like what triggered that to even start?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So when the Family Support Center was developed, so Allegheny County Department of Human Services approached SHIM to establish the Family Center. I don't know what the original programming was, except that the SHIM is always adapting to what the needs are. So I think there was just a need, like the kids didn't have somewhere to go that was, I don't know if the after school or the preschool program came first, but I think the parents in that community were looking for support. And so SHIM was able to provide that. I know over time that some of the other programs have developed out of the clients themselves telling us what they would like. So we have a nurturing parenting class, and our dads group came out of that class when the moms taking the nurturing parenting class said, we think the dads would benefit from some kind of class as well and some kind of support group. And so we have a fatherhood coordinator who now runs the whole program involving dads. We have a parent advisory council. So these are from the families we serve, and they help guide the programming and kind of say, hey, we would really like to see this kind of programming, or we'd really like to see these kinds of workshops, or we want to learn about this, or so trying to find the gaps and then fill them. So our program director has been with SHIM, I want to say 16 or 17 years she's been here. Our executive director has been here, I think, the same amount of time. And so that kind of consistency and trust between the people we serve and our leadership team helps really kind of guide the programming to where people want it to be.
That's cool too, because like we were just talking about like, okay, what's your helping style? Like in that case, and correct me if I'm wrong, like people could probably volunteer that speak multiple languages and they can help with the language. It's like, okay, you speak multiple languages, like that's your thing.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. Translation and interpretation are really big for us, especially because even the people that speak some English, they can express themselves a lot better in their native language. So we have lots of times in our classes, maybe someone will understand what's going on, but they can't participate fully in English. And so we do have, I think there are about 4 languages that are pretty common for us, but then, we branch out. Actually I wrote down the main languages that we hear in our food pantry are Nepali, English, Spanish, and Arabic. But we also have Dari, Russian, Ukrainian, Chinese, Turkish, Farsi, Swahili. So a lot of different languages being spoken. And actually yesterday, our volunteer engagement coordinator hosted an ASL class, American Sign Language class, for our volunteers and our staff we're always trying to be as welcoming as possible and to learn about the people we serve and to be able to communicate in the best ways. And so trying, like you say, if you speak another language, that would be a great thing to bring as a volunteer.
Yeah. And that's what's cool. Like with your organization, there's all kinds of different ways to help. So basically anybody can help because you got so many different things. It's not like, hey, we only need people that can translate or we only need people that can donate money. You have like all kinds of different ways that people can help out.
Yeah. So we rely very heavily on our volunteer base. We have over 300 volunteers who commit time. Our food pantries take a lot of the volunteers. So there are a lot of different jobs there. If you think about just running a grocery store, that's kind of the shifts that are available. We have stocking and packing boxes. We have drivers who drive to the food bank for us, unloaders, distributors. So if you like lifting and getting a good workout, we have jobs for you. If you can't lift, so you don't want to be on your feet, we have jobs for you. Maybe the check-in table is a registration for food bank or for food pantries. Them in the youth programs. So if you like kids, if you like teaching, if you, have a favorite subject, we're always welcoming of tutors. But then also we're always looking for ways to bring information to the teens and youth mentoring. So we like having people come in and talk about their jobs and do an activity with the teens to let them know, what is it like to be a writer? What is it like to be an engineer? Right now, we're actually looking for job shadow opportunities for the teens. So they've given us a big list of what they want to do when they grow up. And we're trying to do some matchmaking there. We have a lot of students interested in medical careers. But within their community, they don't necessarily have any connections to a doctor or anesthesiologist or anyone that they're hoping to shadow. And so we're reaching into the community to try to make those connections. And then gardens, we have lots of volunteer opportunities in the gardens, which are going to start out soon. We have 14 community gardens. So we have one here at our SHIM facility, but then we also have lots of congregations and a couple of schools in the community that host gardens. And so we're always looking for volunteers there too.
Hey, so when you think about your volunteers, why do you think they volunteer? Like if you look at the people, it's like, what do you think they're like? They think, because it's a big step. Number one, if you don't know the organization first, it's like, you know what, I want to do something, and it takes something for them to reach out to even see if it's a fit. So you're going to the unknown. But like, what do you think from working with the volunteers that you have? Why do they do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And especially I feel just so grateful that I get to be around our volunteers because they are the nicest, most wonderful people. They want to be making a difference. They are welcoming. I think especially for the people we serve, people who volunteer at SHIM are very welcoming and inclusive. They're wanting to provide that neighborly feeling. We talk about neighbors helping neighbors on our volunteer team. I think because SHIM has such a big history in the congregation community, we have a lot of pull. I think a lot of people who join us feel a higher calling to give back, and they feel that they want to take part in something bigger than themselves, and they want to give back for that reason. Probably the majority of our volunteers are also retired, and so they're looking for a meaningful activity post work and in a great community. So our volunteers, they really get along. They get to see their friends. They're making friends. So I think that's a huge pull. There are health benefits, right, to volunteering. And I think that a lot of our volunteers bring their friends once they get started. So we have a lot of volunteers that bring their spouses and bring their friends, and a lot of word of mouth that increases our volunteer base. I think because it feels so good to be doing good. and it's contagious. Once you get started, you kind of tell everybody about it, and more people want to join in.
That's interesting too. Yeah, 'cause I didn't think about people bring their friends and family stuff too. Because you're right. Like, number one, helping makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, you want to share it. Like, normally, like I'm like a salesman kind of person. It's like, if I see something good, I want to tell other people about it. So,
Right.
probably same thing there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, over the last few years, I think the need in the community has become more obvious. So I think the pandemic really kind of opened people's eyes to just how important it is to help a neighbor. So I think before the pandemic, we could live in these suburban bubbles of, I'm fine. I know my kids' teachers and the parents of other kids. But when you drive by a line of cars, 60 cars deep trying to get food, and you think, oh, wow, that's in my neighborhood. I probably know someone over there who's struggling. I think it just changes your perspective in, oh, well, there's probably something I can do to help a little bit. And I think I think people really started thinking about helping locally in a different way since the pandemic.
That's a good point too, because you don't know who's dealing with what. Like your neighbor, because it's like what you're saying. You're like, most of the people come, they have jobs,
Mm-hmm.
they have income. It's not like they're just like hanging around watching TV and eating potato chips or something. Like,
Right. Yeah.
they're hardworking people that life slapped them in the face, so they got a hard time. It could be your next door neighbor. So it's like, number one, be aware when you're dealing with people. Everything's not obvious. It's like things aren't what you see sometimes.
Exactly. And I think one of the other things that I've learned a lot here is just that there's not this big divide between people who need help and people who are helping. There's a lot more that we have in common. We have food pantry clients that knit scarves for a clothing closet, or that we have food pantry clients that volunteer in our Checkmates program. So that program, the volunteering is you call an isolated senior and you talk once a week for at least half an hour. And we have people that are receiving services that still want to give back. And then our volunteers, they feel like they're being rewarded getting to know the people who come, who are just, you meet really ambitious people that are doing everything they can for their families, and to be a little part of their lives and to help them in their journey is extremely meaningful. And I think it really lessens that stigma of just because you're accessing food at a food bank does not mean you have somehow failed at life. You're there because you're doing what you need to do. We have clients that turn around and email us. Just this year, we had a woman reach out. She'd come, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, when she had throat cancer, and she never thought she would need help. And, life dealt her a tough blow. And she just said, now she's thriving. She needed us for a little bit there, and now she's thriving. And she just reached out to send us a picture of her flowers, So I think it's really, I think volunteering and bringing people together really lessens that divide of just because we all need to ask for help for different reasons. And just because someone's asking for help with a basic need doesn't mean that they are not a helpful, ambitious person.
Right. And that's interesting too. So you said two things there. Number one, your Checkmate program is interesting. It's just people calling to talk to like just to be there and hear them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great program because you can do it from your home. You get paired up. Our coordinator does a bit of matchmaking so that people have things in common that they want to talk about. The volunteer does get a little training to kind of keep an ear out for anything that might be a sign of a problem. So if the senior mentions that they haven't gotten to their doctor's appointments because they don't have transportation, that's something that we can then help with. Or hey, they're not getting enough food. Oh, we do food deliveries. Maybe we can get you on our list. So there's a little bit of that, but yeah, a lot of it is the isolation that happens for seniors that have trouble getting around, and they're just lonely. And it's a great program to call and check in.
And then when you get to hear back, because most of the people you probably don't hear back from, it's like you just do what you do, and you hope, you're like, okay, hey, they're on their way. I hope everything's good. But yeah, then when the people kind of tell you, it's like, hey, that made a difference. It got me back on my feet. That probably feels good.
Yeah. And we have supporters who say, I accessed your food pantry, and now they're supporters or volunteers on a regular basis. And they might just mention it in passing, like, oh yeah, I came to the food bank like 10 years ago, and that's how I found out about you. And here they are volunteering. And yeah, I mean, as a development professional, I'm always wanting to hear from people. How did the program help you, and where are you now? And you want to think that everyone goes off and thrives, and they don't even think about it after that. But we are reaching out a little bit and trying to gauge, like, how did SHIM help you? Because we're always also looking for feedback and trying to improve our programs. And so we get a lot of good feedback, especially about the people. We hear, the volunteers really made me feel welcome, or my service coordinator, Lisa, she just really made me feel like I was taken care of. And when people are feeling vulnerable, it's important to have that human touch, to not be treated like a commodity or like a problem, but to be talked through and helped in a really compassionate way is important for people.
Yeah, because you're seeing people at their low. It's like they're coming to you because something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like something didn't go as planned.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times there's, kids or there's a lot of worry and fear when someone, especially like our emergency grant program. And so when you're working with someone who might be in crisis, I think one of the things I'm really inspired by our staff and our volunteers is like the patience and compassion, because a lot of times when someone is in crisis, they are not necessarily acting, their best selves. It's really hard to be polite if you're really worried about something. And, we work with a lot of great people. And I think helping people move from that panic stage to a space of being able to assess a situation, connect to different resources. I think that's always really inspiring to see, because then people feel capable of solving problems and they know that they have some hope and some answers. So I think that's a really important part of what people do.
Yeah. Now, what I thought's always interesting too, because I brought my kids down. That's where I met you in person first time. I brought my kids down to see the pantry. They were donating. I think like they had $5 saved up or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting is how you guys explained. So we can donate a thing of peanut butter. I think the peanut butter was the example. It's like we can go to Giant Eagle and buy peanut butter. Or if we donate money, you can buy like 5 things of peanut butter for the same price. We can get 1. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So we have a relationship with the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. So they're our purchasing partner. We actually have to buy about 75% of the food that we distribute. So we get a lot of donations from the community, which is amazing. 187,000 pounds of food from the community. But those financial donations go much further because of our relationship with the food bank. So we can get, 500 times more from a financial donation than if you go to the store, especially, prices at the grocery store are very high. And so that relationship helps us really keep up with the demand and purchase enough food. But we really rely on the community's donations to help us purchase food.
Yeah, and that's important because I'd never think of that. How do you think, how can you get the food so cheap? Do you think it's the grocery stores are just marked up that much because they're name brands, things like that? Or what's the deal?
I wish I had a solid answer. I mean, I think a lot of it is the food bank has relationships with wholesalers and with farms. So we actually get a lot of free produce from the food bank. There are a lot of initiatives. I think some are, government funded initiatives to help get healthy food to food banks. And that since they're that big central agency, they're able to, distribute to agencies like ours. I think we're actually the biggest purchasing partner of the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. If we're not the top, we're the second, because we do purchase about 6,000 pounds, I think actually I overheard the order today was like 8,000 pounds, 6 times a month. So we're purchasing a lot from them. So I think there are some incentive, like some government funding behind purchasing food for food banks. I hope that we continue to see that relationship help us. But we do rely on, we spent $100,000 on food last year. So we do really rely on community donations, funding partners to help us purchase that food from the food bank.
Right. And you guys have an initiative coming up now, right? Because you said is it empty shelf season?
It is. It's empty shelf season. So our shelves kind of empty out in January. We see our biggest pantry attendance usually in December and November. And we really have to kind of amp things up before that. But then we still are serving, 3,900, 4,000 people, each month with our food pantries, but we're receiving a lot fewer donations because people really think about donating at the end of the year. And people tend to forget when the new year starts. So February 14th through April 11th, we are running our Hunger at Home campaign. We're really hoping to raise $50,000. We're hoping to collect 25,000 pounds of food and personal care items. So we're hoping that neighbors get really involved. This is a great initiative for kids. It's really easy for kids to host donation drives. They get really into it. They can set up a box on their porch, put a sign on it, and then you just pass out flyers to all your neighbors and say, I'm collecting food for SHIM. This is the day I want it in the box. I'm going to take it to SHIM. The kids feel like they're getting packages every day because people are coming on their porch, dropping things off. And it's a really great way to spread awareness along with collecting food. So when you're passing out flyers to a neighborhood, people suddenly think, what? There's food insecurity in my neighborhood? I can't imagine. And they go on our website and they see, oh, wow, that there are that many people in the South Hills. I mean, more than 25% of kids in the South Hills are eligible for free or reduced cost lunches. That's 5,500 kids that are facing food insecurity just in our area. So this campaign is really to raise awareness, to rally kids. We're going to have some prizes, some weekly themes. So if you pay attention to our Facebook page, the weekly themes will be up. We're trying to get schools to compete in a sculpture competition so that we see some creativity along with all those canned goods and boxes of cereal stacking up. But just really getting people excited to help and get involved right when we really, really need our shelves to be more full.
Yeah, so if somebody wanted to get involved, what's the best way to connect?
Yeah, so the best way to find out more information is to go to shimcares.org/hunger. So we have a downloadable flyer there that'll let you get people interested. We have, if you want to donate directly right there, you can also start like a Facebook fundraiser campaign. So those are very helpful because it really spreads the word and it helps collect financial donations to purchase food. If you want to spearhead something at a school, at a congregation, something like that, at community group, Boy Scouts, swim team, we have a swim team that every year brings us 1,000 pounds of food, and they always try to outdo themselves. So, get in the competitive spirit, challenge somebody, challenge a group, another Boy Scout group, challenge somebody, and then see how much you can rally people to collect food and money for our food pantries.
That's cool. You say you have flyers and stuff too if people want to use them?
Yep. Yeah. So on that webpage, shimcares.org/hunger, the top button on the left is a flyer that you can download that gives you a lot of information to get started.
Let me ask you this. So we're about out of time, but I want to ask you, what's something that somebody did for you that made a difference in your life that was not like a huge thing to them that they might not even know made a big difference in your life? That's
a great question. I think for me, a lot of it was an acceptance of like who I was as a person. That sounds so, I don't know. It sounds very emotional, but I think for me, there are a lot of things I've valued in my life, and becoming a mom was something that it knocked me off my feet. It made me completely reevaluate everything. And the moms that I met that accepted me for who I was, for how my kids were, just that space of acceptance was huge to me, and I think really life-changing. So I try to do that. I try to now return that with everybody I meet and try to take people for who they are much more deeply. Just give people a lot more space to present themselves and not make judgments and not have expectations, but to just say, I accept you for who you are, and that's where we're going to start from. So yeah, I guess all those moms just accepting me, that was a pretty good moment.
That's interesting too, because a lot of times, like, I never know what people are going to say, because a lot of times it's like, hey, someone did something for me. It's like just something like that, just seeing you.
Yeah.
They were just probably being themselves. They weren't trying to it's not like they went to donate or anything like that. They were just being themselves, trying to be nice people in general, not knowing how it affected you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel very, very lucky. I have had I feel like I've had a charmed life. I've had a very basic upbringing. I have not had a lot of, the stumbles I have faced have not been obvious stumbles. And so I think that having space to just work through whatever you're going through, I think is really meaningful. to me personally. So,
Yeah.
how about you, Brian? What's yours? I mean, I read the book.
Man.
There are a few in there, but
Yeah, I would say, well, like small things, like I talked about in the book, a lady picked her up on the side of the road. That's one thing. I'd say there's a whole bunch. And you know what? A lot of it is like you're saying too. It's like people not judging you. It's like just being there. You know what I mean? Especially because I've went through some tough times. And it's like people just being there to support you and not telling you you're a piece of crap or like whatever. It's like, hey, you know what? You screwed up, but let's work on a way to like fix this. It does not like beating a horse when it's down. You know what I mean? So things like that, I could say, because I screwed up a lot. Like I was different. Like I used to get all kinds of crap, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you take people where they are and you don't judge, I mean, we do a lot of that here at SHIM, then you're giving people space. You're giving them the space to think through a next step, to weigh options and to evaluate, you know, what do I really want? What am I hoping to achieve? You're not writing someone off because they made a mistake. I think that's huge. I think we have a tendency to judge people the moment we think they've done something wrong, even though we all make mistakes constantly. And so I think it is really important to just give people space to make mistakes and then offer them a hand. Hey, I can help you out from here and see what you can.
I'm even guilty of that sometimes too. I just notice it, like judging people, just even based on looks or like someone said it's like, you can look at someone and be like, they look really gruff. And if you actually talk to them, you're like, they're a freaking teddy bear. You know, it's like just like your human nature, you're making assumptions on people based on irrelevant things that you don't know. You don't see the whole picture versus just being open-minded to everybody. Yeah. So I think people are generally good people. Like most people in the world are good trying to help each other out, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I love your book.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, hey, Rachel, thanks for coming on. Tell everybody again, what's the best way to connect and give them the website and any other contact info you might have.
Sure, yeah. So if you're wanting to get involved in donation drives and helping out, shimcares.org/hunger. If you're just wanting to learn more, our website has a ton of information about programs, about getting involved, about volunteering. So just shimcares.org. And you can always reach out to me at rwhite@shimcares.org.
And then if people want to donate money too to put towards food or anything else, they can just do that right on the website also, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very easy. If you want to go directly, it's shimcares.org/give. And then I also encourage people to just join us on social media. So we have a pretty active Facebook page and a pretty active Instagram account. So if you're wanting to know what do we do, who are we serving, I would say follow us and you'll find out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Follow the social channels. Yeah, because you guys do cool stuff. Like you had that one event last year with like all the different nationalities and stuff like that. So cool. All right, Rachel. Hey, well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, Ryan.
Good stuff. Hey, everyone, get out there, crush it, and we'll say just be present and like don't judge people. Right?
Sounds good.
That's the tip for this week.
Yeah.
All right, hey, well, thanks, Rachel.
All right, thanks so much, Ryan.